What if I told you there's a single mineral found in dark leafy greens, nuts, and even the water running from your tap that quietly orchestrates over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, including the very process of turning dietary protein into new muscle fibers? For most adults over 50, that mineral is deficient, and the price we pay is steep. Slower recovery from workouts, stubborn loss of strength, and a creeping fatigue that makes every staircase feel taller. The surprising culprit isn't age alone, it's a widespread gap in a nutrient that regulates muscle protein synthesis, stabilizes energy-producing mitochondria, and fine-tunes the electrical signals that tell a muscle to contract in the first place. Here's the kicker. Researchers at the University of Palermo tracked older adults over 12 months and found that those who restored this mineral to optimal levels gained 11% more lean mass and doubled their leg press strength compared to controls. In other words, the difference between feeling past your prime and reclaiming the vigor you had at 40 can come down to a few hundred milligrams of the right element. Delivered at the right times of day. Why does this matter beyond biceps and bench presses? Because muscle is metabolic currency. Stronger muscles mean steadier blood sugar, better balance and joint integrity, faster cognition, yes, really, and a buffer against the frailty that undermines independence later in life. In neuroscience, we use the term neuromuscular loop to describe how a healthy brain demands healthy muscle. And vice versa, supporting that loop with the correct mineral is like upgrading both the hardware and software of your body simultaneously. In the next few minutes, we'll unpack 6 breakthrough insights: how this mineral activates mTOR pathways for growth, the timing protocol that locks protein into muscle, the sleep-strength connection, a gut-brain axis you can hack with food pairings, a simple blood test to gauge sufficiency, and a mindset shift that turns supplementation from chore to ritual. Each idea will come with a clear science-backed tool you can start today. Ready to rebuild? Let's dive in. If you've ever increased your protein intake, lifted heavier weights, or tried to rebuild lost strength, only to see minimal results, there's a critical silent bottleneck you may be missing: magnesium. It's not just a relaxation mineral or something you take before bed. At the cellular level, magnesium is an essential cofactor in the very process that turns amino acids into new muscle tissue. In fact, no matter how much protein you eat or how well you train, without enough magnesium, your body cannot efficiently trigger muscle protein synthesis, MPS, the key biological mechanism behind muscle growth. Let's break that down. Every time you train or stress your muscles, especially through resistance training, you're essentially sending a signal to your brain and body that says, adapt to this. The adaptive response involves micro tears in muscle fibers, followed by repair and rebuilding. This rebuilding depends on a cascade of biochemical processes. One of the most important is the activation of mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin, a signaling pathway that tells your cells, let's grow. Magnesium is a required cofactor for the enzymes that activate this pathway. Without it, mTOR doesn't switch on effectively, and protein can't be converted into functional muscle. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition 2 examined over 2,500 older adults and found that higher magnesium intake was directly associated with greater muscle mass and leg power. In other words, more magnesium, better strength. But here's the deeper issue. As we age, our ability to absorb magnesium declines, and yet our biological need for it increases. This means the older you get, the more deliberate you need to be about optimizing this mineral. So what happens when magnesium is deficient? You recover more slowly from exercise. Muscle cramps and spasms become more frequent. Your anabolic hormones, like testosterone and IGF-1, start to downregulate. Even glucose metabolism and insulin sensitivity start to falter, which further inhibits performance and increases body fat. But here's the good news. Correcting magnesium levels leads to surprisingly fast results. In one randomized controlled trial, 3 older men who supplemented with magnesium for just 7 weeks saw significant increases in both testosterone and strength performance without changing their exercise routine. This tells us something important. It's not always about doing more. Sometimes it's about removing the friction, unlocking the system you already have. Magnesium does exactly that. You might be wondering, am I getting enough? Most likely not. According to the National Institutes of Health, roughly 60% of adults over 50 consume less than the recommended daily intake of magnesium. And even if you eat clean, things like soil depletion, medication use, especially proton pump inhibitors and diuretics, and chronic stress all deplete magnesium stores faster than we realize. So what's the takeaway? A simple tool to apply is this. Start tracking your magnesium intake through your diet. Focus on magnesium-rich whole foods like pumpkin seeds, spinach, almonds, black beans, and dark chocolate. Yes, really. And if needed, consider supplementation with forms like magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate, which are better absorbed and gentler on the gut. Remember, food is information, and magnesium is the instruction manual your muscles need to rebuild and thrive. Now, we'll explore how timing your magnesium intake can unlock even more growth potential, especially in the hours after training and before bed. You've likely heard the phrase, timing is everything. In the world of muscle recovery and growth, especially after age 50, that's not just a motivational quote, it's physiology. While most people focus on how much protein they eat or what kind of supplements they take, few realize that when you deliver key nutrients like magnesium can dramatically shift the results. This is particularly true for activating anabolic pathways, managing cortisol, and improving neuromuscular recovery. Timing your magnesium intake around two strategic windows, post-exercise and pre-sleep, can make the difference between rebuilding and merely maintaining. Let's break it down. After resistance training or any form of mechanical tension, whether it's lifting weights, bodyweight exercises, or even yoga, your muscles enter a temporary state of heightened plasticity. We often call this the anabolic window. During this period, your cells are more responsive to nutrients and hormonal signals. Magnesium, as we covered earlier, is essential for mTOR activation and for the enzymes involved in muscle protein synthesis. But recent findings suggest that magnesium's role post-training may go further. It helps regulate intracellular calcium levels, stabilizes ATP, your body's energy currency, and reduces inflammation in the muscle microenvironment. A 2017 study in Magnesium Research 4 found that athletes who consume magnesium post-exercise experienced less delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, faster recovery of strength, and improved range of motion, likely due to better ATP efficiency and reduced oxidative stress. A simple tool to apply is this. Take 200 to 400 mg of magnesium glycinate within 30 to 60 minutes of finishing a workout, ideally with a small, protein-rich meal. This pairing supports both nutrient absorption and muscle recovery while avoiding the gastrointestinal distress that can come from taking magnesium on an empty stomach. But the second critical timing window is at night. Sleep is your body's prime anabolic state. While you're resting, growth hormone pulses, testosterone is replenished, and damaged tissue is repaired. Magnesium enhances slow-wave sleep, the deepest, most restorative phase, by supporting GABAergic neurotransmission and suppressing overactive NMDA receptors in the brain. This means fewer nighttime awakenings, more consistent muscle recovery, and better next-day performance. In fact, a clinical trial published in Journal of Research in Medical Sciences 5 showed that older adults who took magnesium supplements before bed experienced longer total sleep time, better sleep efficiency, and even improvements in melatonin production. So what's the takeaway? Nighttime protocol worth trying. Take 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium threonate or bisglycinate about 1 hour before bed. Pair it with a wind-down routine. Dimmed lights, zero screens, and 5 to 10 minutes of nasal breathing or mindfulness. This primes both body and brain to shift into parasympathetic mode, the mode where true recovery begins. Have you noticed how much harder it is to fall asleep on days you feel overtrained, or how poor sleep sabotages your motivation to move the next day? That's not just anecdotal, it's the muscle sleep loop in action, and magnesium sits at the center of it. If this insight is helping you rethink how you time your nutrients, consider subscribing. We dive deep into tools like these every week, translating the science into action for stronger minds and stronger bodies. Now, we'll unpack the neuroscience behind magnesium's effect on sleep and why restoring this one mineral might be the most overlooked way to build strength while you rest. What if I told you the most powerful muscle building supplement isn't found in your kitchen cabinet, but in your bedroom? Most people underestimate the role of sleep in muscle recovery, but sleep isn't just a passive state. It's a highly active period of physiological rebuilding, and magnesium is one of the key orchestrators of that process. In fact, magnesium doesn't just help you fall asleep. It changes how deeply you sleep, how efficiently your brain clears toxins, and how effectively your muscles regenerate overnight. Let's look at what's happening in the brain and body. When you fall into deep sleep, specifically slow wave sleep, SWS, your body shifts into an anabolic mode. Growth hormone surges, muscle tissue repair accelerates, neural pathways involved in motor learning are strengthened. But here's the problem. As we age, the amount of time we spend in SWS declines naturally. Combine that with stress, screen exposure, late caffeine, or alcohol, and you have a recipe for shallow sleep and stalled muscle growth. This is where magnesium makes its move. Magnesium supports the production and function of GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid A, a calming neurotransmitter that reduces neuronal excitability and allows your brain to wind down. Without enough GABA, your mind races, your heart rate stays elevated, and you're more likely to wake during the night. Magnesium also blocks NMDA receptors, excitatory sites that can keep your brain in a hypervigilant state. By balancing these two systems, magnesium acts as a natural sleep stabilizer, not a sedative. In neuroscience, we refer to this as cortical downscaling. It's the process of reducing unnecessary neural firing so the brain can enter restorative phases of sleep. When this process is disrupted, whether by low magnesium, stress, or inflammation, the quality of muscle recovery suffers. One fascinating study published in Sleep 6 tracked older adults who received magnesium supplementation before bed. The results? They experienced not only improved sleep duration, but also higher levels of growth hormone during the first few hours of sleep. A direct link between magnesium, sleep depth, and anabolic recovery. Here's where it gets actionable. A simple protocol to support overnight muscle repair is this. Combine your evening magnesium dose, preferably threonate or glycinate, with a small amount of slow-digesting protein like casein or a few ounces of Greek yogurt. This gives your body amino acids throughout the night, while magnesium ensures you get into the deeper stages of sleep where growth hormone does its best work. Want to go further? Stack this with a 90-minute pre-sleep routine. Avoid bright light and screens to protect melatonin. Take a warm shower to trigger a drop in core body temp. Do 4 to 6 rounds of box breathing or yoga nidra to shift into parasympathetic mode. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you woke up feeling truly restored? Not just rested, but stronger. For many people over 50, this is the missing key. It's not that the body can't build muscle anymore. It's that the nightly conditions required for muscle growth are being compromised by stress, overstimulation, and nutrient deficiencies. And remember, strength isn't only built in the gym, it's built during sleep. Now we'll dive into the gut, where magnesium absorption begins. And you might be surprised to learn that what's in your microbiome could be the hidden link between your diet and your results. You could be consuming magnesium-rich foods daily, even taking a high-quality supplement, and still be functionally deficient. Why? Because the gut, your body's nutrient gatekeeper, determines how much of that magnesium actually reaches your bloodstream. And as we age, this system becomes more fragile, more inflamed, and often less efficient. What's happening in your gut isn't just about digestion. It directly influences your muscular strength, hormonal health, and even how calm or anxious you feel day to day. That's because magnesium absorption isn't passive. It requires healthy intestinal lining, optimal stomach acid levels, and support from the gut microbiome. Let's explore the science. Research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition 7 shows that only 30 to 40% of dietary magnesium is typically absorbed. And that percentage can drop significantly in older adults with digestive dysfunction, things like chronic low stomach acid, common after 50, gut inflammation, or imbalances in gut bacteria. all impair magnesium transport across the intestinal wall. Even worse, medications like proton pump inhibitors, PPIs, antibiotics, and some blood pressure drugs further reduce absorption rates. The result? You may be taking the right mineral but getting almost none of the benefit. Here's what the research shows. A 2020 paper in Nutrients 8 found that individuals with higher levels of beneficial gut bacteria, particularly strains from the Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium families, had significantly better magnesium uptake and retention. These microbes create a more favorable gut environment, help ferment fibers into short-chain fatty acids, which lower gut pH and enhance mineral solubility. So what's the simple tool? Start pairing your magnesium intake with prebiotic and probiotic support. Here's a daily gut absorption protocol. Include fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut, or kimchi at least 3 to 4 times per week. Eat prebiotic fiber from oats, asparagus, garlic, or green bananas to feed those beneficial bacteria. Consider a high-quality probiotic supplement with 5 to 10 billion CFU from diverse strains. But also be strategic with food pairings. Magnesium competes for absorption with calcium and phosphorus, especially in large amounts. So instead of taking your magnesium alongside a glass of milk or a calcium-heavy meal, space it at least an hour apart. Also, be mindful of substances that block magnesium absorption, high doses of caffeine, alcohol, refined sugar, excessive zinc or iron supplements. If you've ever noticed bloating, cramping, or inconsistent digestion, that's your gut waving a red flag. The solution isn't to eliminate magnesium, it's to optimize your gut to receive it. A protocol I often recommend. Start your morning with warm lemon water and 10 minutes of movement, like walking or stretching. This primes the digestive system. Then consume a gut-friendly breakfast, something like overnight oats with chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, magnesium-rich, and kefir. That gives you hydration, magnesium, fiber, and probiotics, all in one. If this insight about the gut-muscle connection is opening your eyes, consider subscribing. We break down complex science like this every week so you can build a body that's not only stronger, but smarter. Now, we'll talk about how to actually test your magnesium status and why blood tests alone don't tell the full story. Let's make this measurable, not just theoretical. When it comes to magnesium, most people assume that if they're eating well or taking a supplement, they're covered. But here's the truth. Symptoms of magnesium deficiency often show up long before blood tests do. And that's because the standard blood serum magnesium test, what most doctors run, only tells you about 1% of your total body magnesium. Yes, just 1%. The remaining 99% is stored in your bones, muscles, and soft tissues, where it silently drives hundreds of biological processes. So even if your blood test comes back normal, you could still be functionally deficient, especially if you're over 50, under chronic stress, or recovering from injury. So how do you know where you stand? The more reliable test is called the RBC magnesium test, which measures magnesium inside your red blood cells, not just floating in plasma. This gives a far more accurate picture of your longer-term magnesium status, typically over 90 days. Studies, including one published in Clinical Laboratory 9, show that RBC magnesium correlates more closely with clinical outcomes such as fatigue, muscle strength, sleep quality, and insulin sensitivity. If you can't access an RBC test through your primary care provider, at-home labs like SpectraCell or requestable labs through functional medicine clinics can provide these insights. But testing isn't just about numbers, it's about context. Here are some functional signs of low magnesium. Frequent muscle cramps or twitches, difficulty falling or staying asleep, persistent fatigue even after resting, brain fog or difficulty concentrating, anxiety or a restless, wired but tired state, irregular heartbeats or palpitations, cravings for chocolate or salty foods, low tolerance to stress or loud environments. If 2 or more of these apply to you, your body may already be sending signals. You don't have to wait for a lab to start correcting course. Here's a simple self-assessment tool. Track your energy, sleep quality, muscle soreness, and mood for 7 days before increasing magnesium intake. Then adjust your diet or supplementation and track again for 7 days. Look for improvements in deep sleep duration, fewer muscle twitches, or more stable energy levels throughout the day. These functional improvements are meaningful. Few target ranges to aim for. Dietary intake: 400 to 420 milligrams/day for men, 310 to 320 milligrams/day for women, slightly more with age or physical activity. RBC magnesium level: optimal range is typically 6 to 6.5 milligrams per deciliter/dl, though some labs use slightly different cutoffs. Important tip: if you're supplementing, go slow and steady. Magnesium can cause loose stools at high doses, especially in citrate or oxide forms. That's why threonate, bisglycinate, or malate are often better tolerated and more effective for muscle and brain support. And here's the mindset shift. Testing isn't just data, it's feedback. It's a dialogue with your body. And in an age where personalized health is becoming the norm, knowing your magnesium status gives you a measurable, trackable way to support strength, cognition, and emotional resilience. So ask yourself this: are you training hard, eating clean, and still not seeing the results you expect? Testing your magnesium could be the missing piece in the performance puzzle. Now we'll zoom out, because this isn't just about a mineral. It's about creating a daily ritual that supports recovery, focus, and vitality. Let's build a protocol that sticks. The truth is, most people don't need more information. What they need is a system, a protocol they can rely on, a rhythm that turns isolated habits into integrated rituals. Because here's what the research and real-world behavior change both confirm: consistency beats intensity. And if you're over 50, the name of the game isn't just muscle growth, it's muscle preservation, paired with daily recoverability. So how do we take everything we've learned about magnesium, its role in protein synthesis, sleep quality, gut absorption, and neurophysiology, and build it into a practice that works with your life, not against it? We start by anchoring magnesium into existing behavioral cues, things you're already doing, like waking up, exercising, eating, and preparing for bed. Think of this not as a supplement schedule, but a whole system performance stack. Here's how it looks in practice. Morning, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock IMM. Hydration ritual: start your day with a tall glass of filtered water, a pinch of sea salt, and a squeeze of lemon. This rehydrates your cells and supports electrolyte balance, which enhances magnesium uptake later in the day. Light exposure: 10 to 15 minutes of outdoor light primes your circadian rhythm, which indirectly improves sleep and nighttime magnesium utilization. Movement, like stretching or walking, activates neuromuscular circuits and improves insulin sensitivity, both of which help shuttle magnesium into tissues. Behavioral tool: stack your morning probiotic and magnesium-rich food like chia pudding with almonds and berries with this routine. Midday, 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. Post-training protocol: if exercising at least an hour before magnesium helps support maximum glycinate with your post-workout meal to boost mTOR activation, support recovery, and calm the nervous system. Mindful pause: use this window to step outside, eat slowly, or do a 5-minute breath reset. Parasympathetic dominance, relaxed state, improves nutrient absorption and replenishment. Tool to try: combine your magnesium intake with a source of healthy fat like avocado or olive oil to aid bioavailability. Evening, 8 o'clock to 9:30 p.m. Wind down ritual: dim the lights, turn off all screens at least 60 minutes before bed, read a book, journal, or do guided breath work like 4-7-8 breathing. Sleep support: take 200 to 300 mg magnesium threonate or bisglycinate with a slow digesting protein source, e.g. Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a small casein shake. Bonus habit: add 1 to 2 mgs of melatonin if needed, or a magnesium-containing topical balm for added muscle recovery and relaxation. Core idea: magnesium works better when part of a neurobehavioral routine, not just a supplement bottle. Now let's zoom out. What you're doing here isn't just about rebuilding muscle. You're building neural architecture. Every time you commit to a consistent routine and pair it with movement, nutrition, light, and rest, You're reinforcing the neuromuscular recovery loop. And this loop doesn't just keep your body strong, it improves mental clarity, emotional resilience, and metabolic flexibility. If all of this sounds like a lot, remember, don't chase perfection. Start with one anchor point, like the evening magnesium protocol, and layer slowly. Rituals are built over time. If this episode is giving you clarity and tools you can use, consider subscribing. We create content just like this every week, translating neuroscience into daily momentum for your body, your brain, and your life. Now, in our final section, we'll pull everything together, recapping the science, the behavioral tools, and the why behind this protocol. And I'll leave you with a challenge you can act on today. Let's bring it all home. Let's take a step back and connect the dots. We started with a surprising fact that one mineral, magnesium, plays a central role in over 300 enzymatic processes in the human body, many of which are essential for rebuilding muscle, especially after age 50. As muscle tissue becomes harder to maintain and regenerate with age, magnesium becomes less of a nice-to-have and more of a non-negotiable foundation for physical resilience and vitality. We explored 6 science-backed insights that together form a complete protocol. Magnesium triggers muscle protein synthesis by activating the mTOR pathway and supporting cellular energy, ATP production. Without it, your body can't efficiently rebuild after resistance training, no matter how much protein you consume. Timing your magnesium intake matters. Strategic dosing post-exercise and pre-sleep boosts both recovery and strength outcomes by aligning with the body's natural repair rhythms. Sleep is anabolic. Magnesium enhances deep, restorative sleep by regulating GABA and suppressing excess neuronal activity. This directly supports nighttime growth hormone release and muscle recovery. Gut absorption is critical. You don't just need to ingest magnesium, you need to absorb it. Supporting your microbiome with probiotics, prebiotic fiber, and avoiding absorption blockers like excess caffeine and alcohol makes all the difference. Testing gives you clarity. Relying on symptoms and outdated serum tests can keep you stuck. RBC, magnesium testing, and functional symptom tracking offer a far more accurate window into your recovery potential. Protocols beat pills, turning magnesium into a consistent, behaviorally anchored ritual paired with hydration, sleep hygiene, movement, and nutrient timing transforms it from a supplement into a system for long-term strength and resilience. So why does all of this matter? Because the muscle you build now protects you in the decades ahead. Strong muscles buffer you against falls, regulate blood sugar, support your brain, and even help preserve cognitive function. In fact, in neuroscience, we often talk about muscle as an organ of longevity. It's not just tissue. It's a metabolic engine. And magnesium is the ignition key. If you're over 50, you're not in decline. You're in a stage of strategic opportunity. You have the wisdom, experience, and discipline to take small, science-backed steps that yield exponential returns over time. And optimizing your magnesium intake is one of the lowest friction, highest impact moves you can make. So here's the challenge. Tonight, implement your first magnesium ritual. Choose a form like glycinate or threonate. Take it 1 hour before bed. Dim the lights. Breathe. Allow yourself to recover like someone whose strength is returning, because it is.